Let's begin with you, Dan Ives. Discuss earnings with me. What do you think? I think it's a masterpiece, and I understand that people choose the whisper numbers for the October quarter. To put it another way, you cannot deny that this revolution is taking place. Furthermore, it's likely going to be close to 34 billion. Not simply the 30 billion and 32 and a half figures they provided, in my opinion. Put an end to the noise. Blackwell delays all of it. Every stock enjoys a brief respite. It is somewhat impacted. It goes higher, I believe. The most crucial factor, which I believe you have discussed, is derivative. Second, third, and fourth. As a result, I believe it reaches all-time highs and gains momentum. What does it say about Microsoft, Oracle, Palantir, Salesforce, ServiceNow, and hyperscalers? The capital expenditure is $1 trillion. The fourth industrial revolution is upon us. After you get off the call, which I believe was more of a get the popcorn ready, it waits for the second, third, and fourth derivatives before proceeding. Yes, I will emphasize that even more. After all, I have discussed network effects. We've seen zero net 1, I've said. Therefore, everyone in the semiconductor supply chain, including designers and chip manufacturers, should be doing well. The ones that will succeed are succeeding. After that, there is a sort of flow to the OEMs. We've experienced some boom and bust, you know. They must find ways to increase their value and revenue, but they are gaining the opportunity by being associated with Dell and HPE. Super, it's up to them to figure out how to connect the applications, the services, and the cake layers to the devices we just discussed. Discuss the Now platform, Raptor and ServiceNow, you know. Salesforce. Benioff made a very bold announcement this week. The other problem, though, is that I'm getting very tired of this whole thing of people staring at a digest. I know we only have a few minutes, so I want to make sure you have time to say before Dan needs to leave, Pat. This isn't the internet cycle, you know. This will not collapse in the same manner as the internet did. This cycle is distinct. There is a time for digestion. You cannot afford to spend $100 billion to $200 billion in capital expenditures, provide services right away, display revenue, and then declare, success. As they sit there, Sundar, they are essentially saying, we will not allow this to lead to our downfall by underinvesting. They all get it. As a result, when all the bears say, oh, there's no one using it, you first provided a number of excellent examples where they are. But that is nonsense, Pat. It's being used by them. However, we must realize that there is a digestion between the OPEX out and the CAPEX in. No, this stuff is good. And listen, I put it this way. Nothing will halt this train for another 12 to 18 months. For 12 to 18 months downstream is irrelevant. I take that you have hyperscaler FOMO. No one is slackering on capital expenditures, including Meta, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. The beat truly continues until we witness investors, their investors, demanding lower capital expenditures. Additionally, I want to quickly address the growth areas that I believe people are still struggling to properly understand. The first is that the hyperscalers were used in the initial build-out. Tier 2 CSPs will see the next build-out. And yesterday night, we heard Dell discuss this. And, just to set Supermicro aside for a moment, the two Tier 2 CSP drivers are Supermicro and Dell. We saw a partial outline of the enterprise, which is the third component. As stated by Jeff Clark of Dell, the company is now in Phase 0 and transitioning into Phase 1 of PS. Content is the third area for growth, correct? They sell more than simply GPU chips. They have racks for sale. They have trays for sale. They are offering GPU chips for sale. They have several networking chips for sale. Also, they sell cables, by the way. Not to be overlooked is software. Nvidia has witnessed an increase in software sales with each new generation, including Blackwell. Additionally, that software began as low-level drivers 15 years ago. And now we have the Blackwell generation, which are microservices apps known as NIMS. Several ISVs are spitting these out or cranking them out. And this is really the simple button to move this along. Yes, there is rivalry, but since the market is expanding so rapidly, it won't matter. Hyperscaler's proprietary ASIC is the main rival. AMD is the closest direct rival, and I predict that they will finish the year with a 10% market share, not for the entire year, but at the conclusion of their calendar year. In 25 and 26, Intel is probably going to show up. Today's Gaudi is having a minor impact, but only at a cost of $500 million. AMD, on the other hand, has a $4.5 billion estimate. Okay, gentleman Dan, we need you to leave so you can appear on more TV shows and talk to. You know, all of you are heading to Asia. This week, I will travel to Asia once more. The bottom line is that, as I usually say, you can find AI revolutions on the 10th level of your office building off of Jersey Transit or Metro North. And for that reason, I believe that a large number of bears keep their attention on their spreadsheets and search for artificial intelligence. Two things, Dan, just as you're running away. The first is that I'll be rushing to Berlin to see what EA is doing with these gadgets. However, I believe we should call Pat. I must give this nerd some credit, you know. As you might imagine, we were figuring out what makes each of us unique as analysts. Pat is the deep technical expert, and we're having a little fun. Did you witness this man pointing out Fort's mask change? In real time, he announced the mask change. Thank you for that. However, see how Patrick is saying, "Oh my Rose, let me deal with this." It was funny, actually. Now that I had actually brought this out live on CNBC, I felt a little terrible. No one was discussing it. When the stock declines, the CFO says, "What's a mask set?" In what I'm reading. It was also humorous. "I've never really had to explain a mask set," I said. After tripping a little, I deep dived a minute or so later. I pay attention. I truly do make an effort to simplify. You mentioned that Bloomberg's headline claimed that they had changed their mask man. They didn't. I know, Jensen responded, but mask change was the headline. Change the mask. No, I'm grateful that Bloomberg removed that tweet, by the way. Did they? Did they? Yes, you just joined Nvidia then. As I mentioned before, it seems implied when analysts discuss, the cost of catching up. They are discussing Nvidia and how much it will cost to try to catch up, perhaps not all the way to Nvidia, but enough to be more competitive. Yes, that's a difficult task. First of all, I would never undervalue Dr. Lisa Su because, you know, I think she's fantastic. Additionally, the revenue guide on the call was about 7.5 against 7.54, and they even stated that it was plus or minus 300. Therefore, it seems to me that sentiment was entering with the desire for a large number. The gaming, of course, was poor. However, I do believe that, when you consider the catch-up trade in general, Nvidia is also consuming itself by producing larger, faster GPUs like Blackwell. And when these large cloud service providers move from training to inference, will they suddenly require all that computing power? Therefore, I'm not entirely convinced about this catch-up trade, since, by the time they catch up, would we still require all of these chips or GPUs? Therefore, I believe the market has noticed this. It's up 2% for the year, while Nvidia is up, 6? Well, we will demonstrate. I apologize for interrupting you when you're finishing your statement. Right now, we're attempting to compile the year-to-date stock-by-stock comparison of AMD vs Nvidia. Please pardon me, but let's continue throwing up. Yes, I was merely suggesting that AMD be treated as a separate business. They engage in distinct activities. Although there is some overlap, Nvidia has a clear advantage over Blackwell's and GPUs in terms of AI spending. Simply put, it is what it is. Therefore, in my opinion, catch-up is not a mathematically sound strategy. There you have it. I mean, I'm not sure if that doesn't convey the story. What does Jason Snike do? Without changing the length or meaning, this version corrects grammatical errors.